Fun fact, if you look right over there at my back reflection, I look like a bus driver. And I can't unsee that. What's going on, guys? My name is Tommy. Welcome back to another episode of Tommy Uncut. We're gonna kill two... I still don't really know what birds are that are good for this. We're gonna kill two rocks with one stone. Yep, that's funny, and we're gonna keep it. Best D&D dad joke ever. This is another episode, of course, of Tommy Uncut, where we talk about the real things behind the screen. On top of that, again, killing two birds with one... No, I'm not gonna say it like that. On top of that, killing two rocks with one stone, we have finished book 1 of Wrath of the Righteous. I've got a lot to say about it, and it makes a good segue into Tommy Uncut, because there is definitely one thing I didn't think about talking about that actually, for the first time in a really long time in BDG's, video rotation, is system agnostic. Excepting, of course, Wrath of the Righteous, which is a Pathfinder game, and so we will speak 1st edition Pathfinder. There's going to be a little GM philosophy in here as well. Because a thing happens in Wrath of the Righteous that is unfair and gross. At least I think that's how some people would see it. It's certainly controversial at best. Anyway, if you guys are liking what you're seeing, a like, subscribe, a dang, dang, dang the bell. I don't know what that one was. I guess the bell dings 3 times today. Yeah! Anyway, since we're talking about Wrath of the Righteous today, I think this episode of Tommy Uncut goes out to Tim Bartlett, Nick Cirillo, Dragon Ninehide, and Bafuo, the bi-weekly patrons responsible for saving Canabrez from bad demon things. Thank you guys so much for your support, helping me live the dream. Anyway, here we go. Real quick, obviously, in case you haven't figured that out, there are major spoilers for Book 1 of Wrath of the Righteous ahead. Fair warning, there's no way to talk about this one without just spoiling the crap out of it. But really quickly, if you're just someone who's looking to roll up a character for Wrath of the Righteous and you want some spoiler-free bits of information and stuff, first, dark vision is really important for a dungeon in this campaign. Dark vision is important kind of as a constant, but things go worse for you if you don't have dark vision. Area of effect spells that do not do elemental damage, for example, Sound Burst, are really clutch for this AP. Okay. Now we're going straight into spoiler town. Okay, so in this, book 1 of Pathfinder 1st Edition's Mythic game, the game where we're going to become very, very, very powerful, we start off very much not so. For individuals who've come to the Worldwound to fight demons, go to a day of celebration, it's interrupted by the attack of a Baelor, a very important dragon is killed, the party falls in a hole. They must navigate through tunnels underneath the city of Canabrez, make their way through hordes of mongrel men that want to fight them, as well as friendly ones. So I thought that was pretty neat. Then reach Canabrez, pick up the pieces, help NPCs they meet along the way, and eventually storm a garrison to prevent powerful demonic forces from unleashing basically the big button press of turn everyone into demon slaves, and in the ensuing events, they become mythic. But that's not to say the road is easy again at all. Book 1 of Wrath of the Righteous is full of a lot of very, very difficult dungeons. The theme basically is breach and clear. We'll talk more about that in a minute, though. My party, of course, they are playing custom races with a 20 RP limit. We used a tiered point-buy system to generate our characters, and I think it's worked really well so far. An Oracle on 15, a Magus, Paladin, and Alchemist on 20 has given everybody the tools they need to function without just breaking the game in. Now, we'll divide this up into tools for GMs, tools for players, and the big thing I want to talk about, just to keep it kind of moving and not me tangenting for 3 hours, all because I could. Anyway, for GMs, the greatest resource you can have for Wrath of the Righteous is a co-GM, because from jump, the game gives the PCs 3 NPCs that they are stranded underground with. Aravachnial, a powerful wizard from a wizardy group bent on demon fighting known as the Rift Wardens, who caught the backswing of a Baelor's whip and is now super blind, which is good because he's a very powerful wizard and would just break the game sideways. Anivia Tirabade, wife to a very important paladin who you meet later, who's fallen and broken her leg. She retains her bow, but has a long-standing beef with probably my favorite one to roleplay because he's just such a tool. Horgus Guerum, a minor noble in Canabres who's rapidly going to figure out he's one of the most important nobles in Canabres now. Keeping these three together has important repercussions for the adventure path as the adventure path goes on, but it also means you, the game master, are now suddenly running 3 additional people on top of your monsters and things in the caverns. Having an extra GM there to make roleplay decisions based on the outlines for Horgus or Aravashnial or all 3. To be honest with you, I seriously considered pinging some of my friends, some of my other fellow content creators, and be like, "Hey, what you doing every other Saturday, 2 to 5 p.m. Central Time? You wanna be this guy?" Because there's just a lot of moving pieces. That certainly got a lot bigger for our players, which leads me to my second GM tool. It's very possible in Book 1 of Wrath of the Righteous for the party to get several followers. Remember, when you get to Canabres, when you get back up there, assuming you survive a really difficult dungeon, there's going to be a lot of desperate people. Call me chaotic good, and I'll smile, nod, and agree with you. But over the course of events, when you get to Canabres, there's supposed to be a lot of people who you meet who are just beyond redemption. They have succumbed to the bad thing, which not really at all. They've just succumbed to their own fear and the horrible situation they're in, and you have to fight them. One of my players, my vivisectionist little tiny Kieran here, wanted to play a character who was doing non-lethal damage, and so a lot of people got knocked out. And so a lot of people had the chance to, talk it out with the party. And it wasn't long before we had a bunch of, the generic human fighter following us around, a couple of wizards, mongrel men. Probably my second favorite of all the NPCs I got to roleplay in this one, Chief Soul, who I played as a combination of Boss Nass mixed in with Grand Elder Guru from DBZ. I will sorely miss him and the cohort granted by roleplay and, again, the logic involved here, who one of my players was planning on leadershiping, and then, the bad thing happened. APs are mean, what can I tell you? The point is, if the players are down with this, and you're down with this, don't be afraid to let the NPCs be redeemed. I think the overwhelming majority of named NPCs that were hostile at least kind of came over the course of Book 1, unless you were an Inquisitor of Baphomet, which is a different story. A dwarf who dabbled in demonology and got run out of Canabres and was hiding in the caverns. Yeah, sure, talk to him. Several mongrel men, human crusaders who were convinced if they sacrificed a woman, then all their problems would be good. Tailors trapped in their shop, so on and so forth. It wasn't long before we had 20 people. Made a lot of jokes that we were playing Mountain Blade Warband over the course of Wrath of the Righteous, and we kind of were. You have encountered soldiers of the World Wound. You have 20 soldiers fit for battle against their 30. What do you do? And I only homebrewed one encounter. It felt really appropriate. Obviously, when you're moving 20 people through the streets of Canabres, you're making a lot of noise. And I like using the unique monsters in the back of the AP bestiaries. So when you told me there was a man-eating aurochs, and you told me there were a bunch of one-hit dice guys cramped up in a library, and I could try to trample them and do a lot of damage, do a lot of ouchies, gave it a shot. At that time, I was playing all these generics at the end of the encounter. I was like, guys, did you like this? Was this fun? And so it was. And friends, let me tell you that that's not a bad thing. We're kind of going to go out of order here because this follows my last bit of GM advice before the big thing. Letting your players have these extra things to help them out is really great because the final dungeon that takes place in the World Wound Incursion, in Part 4, the Wardstone Legacy, the Grey Garrison, is chock full of 1 billion opponents. And truth be told, I did start the first escalation pretty much right from jump because the party did skip some things. And there was a point where a major allied force made its way across Canabres to Horgus's manor to grab a bunch of supplies and people. I think at some point it's fair to say the bad guys know what's happening and they're going to start prepping for it. In any case, before that, here's a map of the Grey Garrison, right? You with me? It's really small, it's really cramped. The party will be introduced to that dungeon with a timeline that is fake and means nothing unless you want it to. But an imperative of this must happen now or the bad thing happens. From jump, you're looking at 2 Vermlex, 6 Tieflings, 2 Abercandilus, another tiefling, 3 dretches, 3 cultists of Discari, the scariest part of the AP, probably a 5th level alchemist, 6 more tieflings, a periton, a shear, 3 demonic giant flies, 4 more cultists. I played mine as cultists of Baphomet, a little bit of sleight of hand there. Anyway, 6 human zombies, a fiendish minotaur, and a half-elf 7th level oracle. The party is expected to get through these really fast, and should they need to retreat, truth be told, in my running of Wrath of the Righteous, there was a bit of a miscommunication on the time and if crafting time was available, so the first part of the attack was made without our alchemist or our oracle, and again, since I was expecting 20 guys to come in, I went ahead and did the first escalation because some things got jumped around a little. That being 6 more tieflings, 4 dretches, 1 mandragora, as well as a witch. This gets worse every time you fail or have to run, or to be honest with you, should enough time pass where you hunker down in the dungeon, because certainly these guys have a way to get the word out. More cultists, more tieflings, more vermlex, more abercandilus, eventually a babau. Yeah, it's terrifying. It's a lot of opponents, and that's why I think it's okay for the party, if they're capable of running it, to bring that many people. Of course, they don't become mythic. Of course, they don't level up higher than the party. But sometimes you just need 20 soldiers with crossbows to fire in. Simple enough. Anyway, the first true dungeon of the game, a Mongrelman lair, after you meet the Mongrelmen of Neathholm, and they agree to help if you can clear out the Mongrelmen who have conveniently camped on the way up to the surface, have posted a garrison outside, and they have dark vision as Mongrelmen. There's probably no other light down here except for the human cultists that would cast light on themselves, or just use the light the party casts to be able to function. That said, if you've cast light and you're moving through area H1, it doesn't take a long time for the Mongrelmen to see the light that they almost never see, and then instantly raise the alarm. There are some things that it takes time to function. Certainly it's not like all of the cultists are going to come sprinting up forever. But there is a lot of language that's something like, well, if this happens, they go alert these people. And suddenly you've hit a breach and clear scenario, which is again, and that coupled with the tieflings from the Grey Garrison is why I say the spell Soundburst, because Soundburst truly is really good, as Tempe showed us for the situation, is just kind of clutch for this. Cleave doesn't look bad either. There are just a lot of low hit dice opponents in front of you that are gumming up the ground game, while people are hexing or shooting over top. And also, if you're likened to take a lot of cohorts and things, being able to channel positive energy looks real good when there's that many targets that don't have a lot of hit points that could be instantly topped off by a channel. Channeling energy to harm the living and excluding your party, also not the worst choice. A lot of things will die to it. It just becomes a million times easier, at least in this case, if you don't have to give away your presence by popping a cantrip. But that's not the bad part, friends. This is the part I wanted to talk about. This is the philosophy bit. This is the what is okay to do as a GM. This is it okay to place bait as a GM? Because this adventure path does. There is no other way to put that. We will jump back now to part 4. Before going to attack the Grey Garrisons, if you got at least a friendly with our resident Blind Wizard, said Blind Wizard will give you what appears to be a really good cache of gear. Specifically, 8 potions of Cure Serious Wounds, 4 potions of Lesser Restoration, 10 plus 1 Evil Outsider Bane arrows, a Chime of Opening, hold on to that one, that's the important one, 2 Cold Iron weapons, pick types used by the PCs, in our case it was a Sword Cane and a Forgekin Blade, special weapon for our big dwarf, a Wand of Magic Missiles, and a Wand of Daylight. Basically everything you need to survive the garrison, with one enormous caveat. When you hear Chime of Opening, you think, this is a chime, it will pring, and then things will open. Sure, you'd think so. But check this out. A Chime of Opening is a hollow mithril tube about a foot long. When struck, it sends forth magical vibrations that cause locks, lids, doors, valves, and portals to open, automatically dispelling hold portal or arcane lock by a spellcaster of lower than 15th level. Sounds really good. The chime must be pointed at the item or gate to be loosed or opened, which must be visible and known to the user. The chime is then struck and a clear tone rings forth. The wielder then makes a caster level check against the lock or binding using the chime's caster level, that's 11th, in place of their own. The DC of this check is equal to the disabled device DC to open the lock or binding. Each sounding only opens one form of locking, so if there's several locks you gotta go over and over. Pretty cool, right? D20 plus 11 sounds great for opening locks. The problem with that, and as a quick disclaimer, I guess I can't definitively go point at somebody somewhere and be like, you baited your party, but I can't think why else this would be in the game. The front door to the Grey Garrison is locked, of course, because you would lock it, because it is a garrison. That front door is locked with a disabled device DC 30. That means to open the front door of the Grey Garrison with the chime of opening, you must roll a 19. You only get 10 shots with this thing before the item breaks. It's the same story for the door, which I didn't lock, going to the second floor, disable device 30 or break DC 25. So what happens is, if you're planning on opening the front door to the Grey Garrison with this item, you walk up, you use it, nothing happens. Now, let me ask you, friends, why would we put this in our games? Obviously, it doesn't cut the mustard here, unless you happen to roll really, really well. And unfortunately, these big, gross demon worm things, who, with positive mental stats, who are posted as guard, can certainly raise the alarm. Now, there is one thing that I did alter in the Grey Garrison. Owing to the fact that I have someone in the party with a climb speed, owing to the fact that I have a large creature who can stab into the second floor, the shutter that leads to the second floor was not just one, it was several. In such a way that if Grazak wanted to run up, yank the bars off, and climb into the second floor, or if Delvin wanted to run in and stab and break, they certainly could. But even if that wasn't changed, the scenario then is the party has raised the alarm, they have rushed the Grey Garrison, they activate the magic item, it makes a loud chiming noise, and then doesn't work. I'm going out on a limb and assuming they try again. After a couple rounds, and it doesn't take long for, again, the issue of high intelligence opponents, this alchemist here to be like, we're under attack. I'm going to go where the shutter is and start throwing firebombs down on everyone. It's a meat grinder. I don't know really still how to pronounce Othirubo, I think's name, but it's just gnarly. And the alchemist, as a lot of my friends will attest, is one of the best classes in Old Pathfinder. When he runs out of bombs, he just pops his mutagen and he's still good to go. That's assuming the 3d6 plus 2 fire damage raining down on people doesn't just cause them to flee. In my case, yes, it allowed some of the tieflings to fire down with crossbows. At that point, they're rolling so arbitrarily low that really all they did was harass. So I'm going to do my best right now to try to defend what blatantly, again, is bait for the PCs to get caught in a trap like this, and myriad others. There are flies with breath weapons, there are dretches who could run to the window and summon dretches down. Right, options are endless here, but why do it? This almost comes off as GM versus players to me, and it definitely raised a couple of red flags for me when this happened. Like, am I trying to kill these people? Though I am quite chaotic good in nature, do take a very lawful neutral stance when GMing. It says this, I do this, I believe in you, I think you can do good as well, but I don't like to pull punches on my players. I've done it twice, I regretted it both times, I got in trouble with my ex-wife once, but that relationship was bonkers, and we don't need to talk about that right now. Why it's okay to use this bait is because it allows players to critically think, and so I wouldn't change it. The stakes are really high for the Grey Garrison. Bad stuff should happen. Breach and clear is the theme. God, when I was talking about how good Soundburst is, it's also real good to have someone knock down the door and then someone else color spray in. Oops, all the tieflings are stunned. But forcing your party to critically think, forcing your party to react to situations, instills a sense of teamwork, while not making what is basically a really easy dungeon that turns you mythic a cakewalk. Using bait like this also allows you, and remember, though several of the things in the Grey Garrison will not attack on the first run unless they get provoked, are intelligent, can strategize, do have definitive underlings. If someone says, hey, you lot, shoot them, or hey, you lot, let's all have held actions for when that door opens, basically the Grey Garrison, without the bait, without, I'm going to run up to this door and get caught, you don't really get that much time to set up like that. It also kind of makes for a really great narrative, right? I've enjoyed Wrath of the Righteous quite a lot from the point of view of the game master who's watching these baby, soon-to-be demigods lead forces that they have role-played with, that they have bonded with, into an assault, because I like games like Mountain Blade. And those games are boring when you can just get your Tower Shield and Bastard Sword and Rodok Heavy Crossbowman and you've won, right? Putting a stumbling block like this down makes the narrative really interesting. Crap, that didn't work. Now what? Magus, you got anything? No, not really. Paladin, Grazak will now break down the door. That was a really bad Grazak voice, but whatever. And lastly, the other reason I think this is okay, this one's a little specific. We can talk about how bait can further the plot and cause your players to have to critically think, so long as you're not baiting them into a bunch of exploding Baelors all at once that poo-poo on you. But in terms of Wrath of the Righteous specifically, all that needs to happen is one of the players needs to get the Rod of Cancellation that they are given to the Wardstone fragment they are trying to corrupt and tag it. And that's when the Mythic Catalyst goes off. And when that goes off, let me just completely read it how it says here. All debilitating conditions and wounds are immediately healed as the PCs are restored in an instant to full health. All expended spells are instantly restored and all limited use per day abilities recharge. Any dead PCs are restored to life as by true resurrection. So in this particular case, I think when something as powerful as Mythic is on the line and the narrative is big war, lots of fighting, I think it's totally fine, again, to do the bait, but if there's a free res at the end of the mission, why not? Go all out. As a final note for GMs, what I will say is I did not force my players to take a campaign trait from Wrath of the Righteous, so we'll have to shoehorn in how those traits evolve, but also, I think my favorite part about going Mythic is it means I get to help reimagine the characters as they basically are reborn. My super lizard folk paladin of Apsu now just looks like a silver half-dragon, a race of large dwarves cursed by the god of hags. Well, their mythic hero now just looks like no longer a ugly hill giant thing, but just a particularly large dwarf as his curse is lifted. My character from the first world now is just constantly shifting and changing and is super chaotic, which has been the most fun flavor. One minute you have the wings of a corvid, the second you have the wings of a butterfly, and my Scion of the Wind, our Oracle, now just has resting Super Saiyan 2 face. Getting to further flavor the characters like this is really unique and really cool. And again, you don't get a lot of chances to do that outside of Mythic. But my friends, that's all I have to say for today. Wrath of the Righteous has been fun. You 100% can look forward to seeing us play more of it moving forward. As a final note, I will say, again, baiting your players into a trap like that is totally okay, as long as they have an out and you're not trying to just, TPK, because it forces them to think critically, because I guess I didn't say this before, but a la Fire Emblem, it builds those battle bonds, and it can help sell the narrative that in a war, plans don't always go your way. But have you guys been enjoying Wrath of the Righteous? How do we feel about these kind of themes? Throw it in the comments. I finally have something to say about Kingmaker, because we're about to play it. But next week, while it's still fresh in my head, on Tommy Uncut, we'll be talking about the events of Book 1 of Carrion Crown, specifically the fine art of GMing at the bottom of the 9th. More on that in a week, my friends. See you then.